Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome PJ Victor here. And she is an author, a speaker, a teacher, and a mindset coach. So we're going to get to know a little bit more about her and have a great conversation. So, PJ, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am born and raised in South Florida. A lot of people say, how does that make you Southern? And I say, when there's alligators next to your backyard or in your backyard, that's Southern. Nothing
Yep.
against all the other, the Carolinas and Tennessee and all of those people. They're some of my closest friends. But having been raised in a town full of a lot of wealth, I'm originally from Naples, Florida. Once I had a few children, actually two of them at the time, and my grandparents had passed, my father had passed, I decided I could leave that bougie little place and find something a little different. So I ended up on an island in the Gulf of Mexico, a little 7 Mile island called Anna Maria, and started raising my kids to be island rats, which was a great experience for over a decade. Fate, whatever you want to call it, led me to finding Las Vegas, Nevada. And I was racing Baja trucks and living my best life and enjoying being a single mother at the time, and just realizing that, or at least starting to realize, maybe the things I was doing were for some deep reason I didn't understand. And that came very crystal clear to me on October 1 of 2017. I was pregnant with twins and I lost one as a result of the shooting here in Las Vegas. I happen to be in Las Vegas right now because I share custody with someone of that surviving twin. And we come here so that he can visit with daddy. And I basically sit around twiddling my thumbs when I'm here. But I realized after the shooting, after not having the best health anymore, developing an autoimmune disorder, it just became like this perfect storm of finding out that trauma had been attacking me my whole life and that I was just a survivor. And I didn't want to be just a survivor. So I made the decision, once they told me I was going to die and needed to put my will in order, that was not the destiny that I had for myself. And I wasn't going to let that happen, because at the time, my now 6-year-old was only 4. And I put myself on a path to finding out, what could I do? Yoga wasn't enough. Eating healthy wasn't enough. Being a vegetarian wasn't enough. What could I do to find healing for myself? Once I did that, praise God, in my opinion, I ended up becoming someone who the medical world terms as being in spontaneous remission. And when that happened, I started to kind of take a look at my life, and being 49 became being 18 again. And I wanted to figure out what I could do with these unspoken words of my heart. And I realized I went to college to be a writer. I went to college and became an English teacher. And I did that because some bad stuff happened to me in high school. And my English teacher is the one who gave me the motivation to keep going to school and to keep a smile on my face. And I was escaping my life from reading books. And she was the one who inspired me to think maybe I could write some. But bad relationships over the years, people had told me, you're not a writer. You can't do that. And at 49, I decided it was time to do the things that I felt I knew I could do in my heart. So just shy of my 50th birthday, I published my first book. And that was this year in March. And it's been a whirlwind ever since, because I'm about to publish my 4th book. I decided, instead of twiddling my thumbs when I'm here in Nevada while my youngest is with his daddy, that I would put my little fingers to work on my computer and write some books. And it's been lovely. It's nonfiction, it's inspirational, it's motivational. I'm sitting next to people on planes and I'm reading some of them and going through some things, and people are asking questions. and they're buying the books and they're giving me feedback that it's helping change their lives. And that is where I am today. I want to be a thriver. I want to shine my light and help others turn themselves in from a survivor to also thriving with me. Because if I can do that with enough people, then the whole world, I believe, can maybe get a little bit brighter.
Now, if I read correctly, this last book that you wrote was for your son?
So, yes, the first book was for me. It was basically about finding my emotional independence after spending my entire life dating people with drug and alcohol problems, trying to solve them because I couldn't solve my biological mother's problems. And it affected me in ways I didn't understand until literally the last couple of years. But while writing that book, I couldn't finish the last chapter because I'm still involved in a legal case with my ex, and I didn't feel like the story was over. And I felt kind of like an imposter if I were to finish the book. So I started to write two separate letters, one to my 21-year-old, who at the time was 20, and one to my 15 or 16-year-old, who at the time was 15. And for my older son, it became my second book, Soul Quest, on helping him find his God-given destiny because he graduated in the time of COVID. So many people asking him, what do you want to do? And he still to this moment doesn't really know. He's kind of still discovering himself. And the 15, now 16-year-old, that letter became this third book that has just released a couple weeks ago. And that is Beyond Words, making connections that count. One of the things I've come to realize, both boys are considered Gen Z, born in 03 and 08. Communication skills seem to be lacking in children between roughly the ages of 12 to almost 30, if you ask me. And so with Beyond Words, I wanted to make it short and easy for him to read so that he would read it and encourage him that all of these amazing relationships he's built online through gaming could be better if he practiced some different techniques. And once those techniques he felt confident in, he could turn those into real friends in real time. And I have to say, it's working. I'm really proud of him. He just came back from church camp. And while he was there, he was one of 15 children to be baptized. And he's got a couple of really good friends, one of which suffered with some drug problems. And now he's also baptized. And the two of them are palling around together, living their best lives at this moment for 16 and 17-year-olds, and just sharing and being vulnerable with each other and being friends and being there for each other and being present in the moment. And that's what I wrote the book for. I wanted to encourage my son and other boys and girls his age, and even young adults that are even, in their 30s. I think somewhere along the line, with all of the online social media and with COVID forcing us to be behind screens, many of us lost the ability to communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. And, we could dive into the whole idea of these keyboard people that hide behind their computer to give opinions that they probably wouldn't share face to face. But that's not what's important. It's really more important to meet people where they're at. I have long learned that all problems are communication problems, and all problems can be solved by communication. And that's what I wanted to do in this book, was to just offer anyone willing to read it the ability to find some tools and techniques to keep and then to share, and to understand that you can build friendships by being vulnerable and by showing what your passions are. And the biggest thing is to learn to, and although I'm probably not doing it right now, listen more than we speak.
It amazes me how many times I'll be at a restaurant or at somebody else's house and you see, young kids on their phone, and there'll be someone right in front of them, but they're still texting back and forth with each other. I don't get that.
It's unique. Years ago, the Chick-fil-A restaurants used to have these adorable cardboard boxes, and they called it the cell phone chicken coop. And they would be on the tables when you went to the restaurant. And you could open it and you could drop your cell phone in the box, leave it in the center of the table, so that while you were eating at the restaurant, you could have engaging conversation with each other. Now, I admit I stole a box from Chick-fil-A, and we still have this to this day in our home because I want to encourage my children. I have three, to have conversation with each other, especially at the dinner table. And it's frustrating to see, but I'll tell you, I even see people in their 60s and 70s, husbands and wives, or couples out to dinner. They're texting and they're on their phones instead of enjoying the food in front of them and sharing the tastes and the experience that they're having. And it's disheartening, but I'm hoping, my prayer is that through the books that I'm writing, people will find inspiration to maybe make a couple subtle changes in how they communicate with each other and how they view the world, and maybe make some connections that count, not just with the people that they are with close and personal in their home or nearby or work, but maybe with just strangers on the street.
My biggest problem for years, and I'm talking years, was when it was mealtime, sat down in front of the TV and watched television and ate. And my wife, so I got remarried. My wife now, she has a rule. We're going to sit at the table, we're going to put our phones away, and we're going to talk while we're at the dinner table. And that has been one of the best things that's ever happened. It's brought us together a lot better, especially since we moved in with my mom. She's had a lot of health problems, and she's, in her mid 70s, and she's here by herself. So we moved back here to be with her, and it's you can tell it's helped her a lot too.
I grew up in a not very comfortable home. So when I was getting ready to have my first child, my father's advice to me, since I was petrified of being a mother, he said, just do everything the opposite that your mom did. That's been serving me well for over 21 years now. And I will say that if you recall the Kool-Aid commercials from the past where, hey, Kool-Aid man, and he would just break into the house and smiles would, be on every child's face. I've always said I want to be the Kool-Aid house. I want to have the Kool-Aid house. So I have three boys, and we have things at our home so that I can attract the other kids and keep my kids with smiles on their faces. And yet, whenever we break bread, whether it's a potluck at the house, a birthday party, or just a family meal, I'm from the TV table generation, but we don't have TV tables in our house. The dining room does not have a TV that you can even see. The breakfast area where you eat, you face the opposite direction of the TV. And that was intentional because truly it's been a journey for me my whole entire life. But I want to make sure that my children know that they're loved. And I want people, when I'm talking to them, to feel loved. And that's not just eye contact. There's a lot more to it. People have these unbelievably fascinating individual narratives, but you're not going to be able to tune into their story with any type of empathy or attention if you've got your phone buried into your, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, it's sad. I think that's one of the problems with our society right now is we've let to the cell phones and iPads and computer screens, the television raise our children instead of us spending the time with them. I'm guilty of it. I mean, my kids didn't have the cell phones and all that when they were growing up. So they're all, in their 30s. But the television, oh, don't bother me. I'll put on Barney or whatever and just don't bother me. I really regret doing that.
Don't beat yourself up. The biggest thing I tell everyone is forgive yourself for the transgressions that against yourself, because that's not going to bring anything positive. But what you can do is, it's the serenity prayer, change the things you can. So at this point, do you have any grandchildren?
I have 3 grandsons.
Well, it's the idea that you appreciate them. And when you have time with them, you listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. And you are active when you're around them by, being active with them, whether I don't know their ages, but if they're building blocks on the floor, if they want to go outside and hit a ball, whatever it is, it's just this idea of discovering the beauty of paying full attention to whether it be your grandchildren, your children, your neighbor, your wife, your mother-in-law. I mean, really, that's what I feel it's come to these days is we honestly have to re-educate people that asking questions that unearth profound insights and appreciating the absolutely powerful influence of a narrative that someone has, you can't force a bond with someone. You have to ask questions. You have to give them attention and be present with them. Somehow we got lost as a society and we're not doing that anymore.
But I say that I live vicariously through my 4-year-old grandson because he loves monster trucks. And although we didn't have monster trucks when I was his age, I spend a little bit too much money on them. But we have such a blast building tracks with the Hot Wheels and all that. And I think I'm making up for the time that I lost with my kids.
And I assure you that your children appreciate it. I know that there is a saying about, children and then grandparents and grandchildren and just I don't want to call it the nuances, but the time spent is different. It's this idea that you can spoil them and send them back. But in the process of spoiling them, you do bring smiles to you spoil your grandchildren and you do actually bring smiles to your children's faces. I do miss my father dearly because he was such an amazing grandfather to my oldest, and he's been in heaven now almost 20 years. But I've been able to create connections with others in my community. And so we have what we call, and my friends used to laugh, but now everybody accepts the term family. I may be an orphan now, but I have friends who have become family. So almost every friend I have is uncle this or aunt that to my children. And even their parents have become like grandparents to my children. And I welcome the connections that keep getting made, because engaging in all these diverse perspectives and embracing all of the different vulnerabilities of everyone, that's the path to deeper understanding and genuine connections that I want my children to learn and my family's children to learn. I treat every friend I have, they know this. I treat their children as if they are my own. And that connection came from just paying attention and listening and holding space with them when they're at our home or when we're out at the park or wherever we may be. So you can transform how you interact with the world, no matter how old you are. But I'm hoping that this book will start that transformation with my sons and with their friends and with the young adults who read the book, because we need it. And it doesn't matter. I've had a 50-plus-year-old woman say that she read the book and was shocked that she read it in the same day. I was like, well, it was short on purpose. But that's what it is. I just want to empower people to be able to apply the insights that they learn into their daily interactions.
And if you don't spend time with your kids and your grandkids, you're going to lose them to the world.
Un Unequivocally, I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. You were talking about helping them to find what they want to do in life. Yeah, let's say someone is on that path where they think they found what they want to do, but somewhere along the way they've gotten discouraged and they want to give up on that dream. How do you encourage them?
So that's actually a lot of my second book. That's the book Soul Quest. My oldest son is identified what we used to call Asperger's, and now they call it autism level 1. Same diagnosis that I have. And you learn that your view of the world is different than everyone else's. And it's a interesting path to be on, to realize, and I'm trying to teach him the things I now know so that he can recognize when you get a little bit of a nod of the head or someone shaking their head at you, it's an unfortunate and sometimes uncomfortable situation. But when you think you know what you want to do, it's incredible how much people want to tell you what they think you should do. And that is where I think my son and other people can become discouraged, is you finally think, oh, I got it. I figured it out. This light bulb went off. And then you start sharing what you want to do, and people start to knock it down. And so what I encourage him and others in the book Soul Quest is to learn to have some self-care, because you've got to keep your personal mindset in a good place, because there are people who are going to come in and knock you down. That's life. But you've got to deal with those emotional challenges. And in order to do that, you've got to develop some emotional resilience. And so that is what I try to teach in the book, and then also encourage my children in my home, because I want them to be world changers. And I would love to see a lot of Gen X kids rise up and become world changers, instead of being told by everyone in the world, it seems, that they're all lazy. Well, that's a limiting belief that we're putting on them. And so how do they change that? Well, they're going to have to do it themselves. They're going to have to kind of prove to the world. But then I stop back and say, no, you don't have to prove it to them. Prove it to yourself. Take every little small victory and celebrate it, because then those little victories are going to add up to even bigger victories. And then you're going to all of a sudden see that that yellow brick road you were staring and searching for, you were on it the whole time.
Do you talk about prayer?
I do. I talk about prayer as well as meditation. As a Christian since I was the age of 5, I am sometimes knocked around for it, but I do believe that yoga and meditation and even hypnotherapy are positive things that even Christians can use, because it's really, in my opinion, God gave us breath. And that's what meditation is. That's what yoga is. You're connecting to your breath. And right now, in the times that we're in, I think a lot of people have stopped having a connection with themselves. And a lot of people, again, my opinion, but they're walking around with this God-shaped hole, and they're trying to fill it with all of these things, whether it be drugs or alcohol or online gaming or friendships with people that aren't really good for their path. And so I do spend a good chunk of time in Soul Quest, kind of guiding someone to make good interpersonal connections with themselves through prayer and meditation.
Hardest thing for me is I have adult children that don't have the best influence and in friends. And how do you talk to an adult about their choice in friends? They're like, hey, I'm 20 something years old. I can do whatever I want.
So I've been battling that when the 21-year-old was 12 and the 16-year-old, became 12. 12 is like this magical age where all of a sudden children decide they know everything. And rather than beat my head against the wall and constantly try to tell them what they should not be doing, I have learned, especially in the last 2 years, that I should just simply reflect what I want them to be doing. My oldest and I had some very deep and hard conversations about my last relationship and the fact that it was difficult for him to watch the way I was treated and the way I was spoken to. And then for me to turn and tell him that I didn't like his girlfriend and I didn't like the way she spoke to him and the way she treated him. I mean, I think the saying is it's the pot calling the kettle black. And he didn't enjoy watching the way I was treated through several relationships that he was privy to. And so honestly, I feel very empowered because in this last, I guess, almost 3 years now, I have been alone for the right reasons instead of with someone for the wrong. And I have been very conscientious of the friends that I choose to keep and the friends that I have. I mean, I learned this from someone that I'm being mentored by. It's okay to fire your friends. And that's what I've done. I have, in front of my children, not with nasty conversations or anything, but I've let them watch and be privy to me letting go of relationships that did not serve me and did not serve them. And what's really wonderful and magical is that they have both changed some of the friends that they keep. And I didn't have to tell them to do it. They watched me do it.
It's hard when you've had friends for decades, but in my case, being an alcoholic and a drug addict and wanting to get away from that life and having friends that don't want to give it up, I say that I love them from afar. If you really desperately needed me, I'd be there for you, but I can't hang out with you because you're still doing the things that I'm trying to stay away from.
And being a child, an adult child now, but having been a teenager of an alcoholic and drug addicted biological mother, I went to Alateen and I went to Al-Anon. And the best thing I learned there was how to detach with love. And it's happening. Even in my adult relationships, I'm having to, like I said, fire my friends. And it is something that is difficult to do, but I have to look at it as it's not just for me. I've got these eyeballs watching everything I do. And I want to compel them to have great friendships. But they are not going to be compelled to do that if they're watching me hanging out with people that are not transforming the world or having any real interest in interacting with the world in a positive manner. So it's difficult. It really is. But I want them to learn to make every connection count.
Well, where can people find your books?
So I got real creative, haha. And the easiest way to do it is I'm PJ Victor and I'm a writer. So if you go to pjvictorwriter.com, you'll find links to the different books. But I'm a multifaceted person. So if you go to pjvictor.com, you'll see a plethora of links to the different things that we do. My oldest started his own charity when he was 6, so there's a link there. Links to getting more information if you're interested in doing some online hypnotherapy with me. So thepjvictor.com or pjvictorwriter.com would be a great way to start. And I encourage anyone to email me, contact me through there, because I'm very willing to share short and even some long meditations that I have created with suggestions to help people not just have a more positive mindset, but maybe let go of some habits, release some habits they don't want, release weight. There's all kinds of different things you can do with hypnotherapy. But more than anything, my biggest takeaway is that I always want to share that people need to concentrate on 3 things: being present, being curious, and being reflective. And if we can do that, the whole world could change from being just a survivor going to and from work, to and from school, to actually thriving. And then when they start to do that and light up, we're going to light the whole world up.
Amen to that. Well, and as much as I hate social media, it's almost a necessary evil nowadays. Do you have social media?
I do. And I think the easiest way is to just go to thepjvictor.com because all those links are there.
I will put those links in the description just to make it easier for folks. But PJ, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for giving me this time, Kyle. It's been an absolute wonderful, just like an experience to share some space with you today. And I am so proud of you for the different trucks that you share with your grandchild. I mean, it's beautiful. I love trucks. My daily driver is a 600 plus horsepower Ford Raptor Roush truck. So, people can hear me 2 miles away, but it's fun. I'm a little Florida cracker. It's what it is. What do you do? But trucks are fun. And so I encourage everyone to find something that they can do with someone else and have fun doing it, because that's how we truly create meaningful connections.
Yes. Thank you again. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. From our regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network